Welcome into Mental Notes Live. On today's episode, I've got speaker, speaking coach, and author Frank Kitchen, and our musical guest for today is J Myles. DJ Woody, take us in. This is Mental Notes Live, the talk show that gives you tools to grow your faith, mindset, and progress. Welcome into Mental Notes Live. I am your host, Ryan Hale. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I have a special guest with us as usual. Today I've got on a speaker, speaking coach, and an author, a phenomenal guy, Frank Kitchen. Thanks so much for joining me, Frank.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Ryan.
Man, it's been a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure just getting to know you off camera and now getting a chance to kind of link up with you here on the show. I'm really excited for our conversation. So like I said, you're a speaker and a speaking coach. So take us through how you got into that.
All right, so how I got into it was I was quiet and shy. Like I grew up in a military family. Wow. So we grew up around the world. Every 3 to 4 years we were moving. Mm-hmm. So I grew up quiet and shy. And as I got older, I started to get involved with a couple different things. So in college I got involved with a couple student groups, but we started to bring in performers and entertainers, and I started to hang around them a lot, and they started to just kind of, just drop off some nuggets, some gems, tell me how to, just get out of my shell. Right. And when I started to do this, I started to get into the point of I had to go up on front of the stage to introduce the comedians or the musicians, and that became part of my job. I'm like, that's not me. Mm-hmm. And then the piece that changed was years later, I came back to that same college as an employee. Okay. And we're getting ready for a Martin Luther King program. And I'm the guy who works backstage, behind the scenes, and for, weeks I've been saying, hey, Frank, we want you to be one of the speakers. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. I was like, let me think about it. And while I'm waiting for the event to start, making sure everything's working, that night this young man comes up to me, probably like 8 to 10 years old, and he goes, I'm looking for Mr. Kitchen. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, what are you looking for Mr. Kitchen for? And he's like, I won the essay contest, and it told me to find him, so I can get up on stage. I'm like, well, that's me. And he goes, you can't be Mr. Kitchen. And I'm like, why? And he goes, you're too young. And I'm 31, 32 at the time. Uh-huh. And he goes, I was like, what do you mean I'm too young? He goes, well, he's like, all the black men who are part of NAACP and the Martin Luther King program, he's like, are grandfathers. And I looked, and I'm going, oh, this is why they wanted me to be on stage speaking, was the case of being that role model, because we had, all these men in their 50s and 60s up on there, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So the kids, the youth, didn't see anybody who looked like them, who were in their age group. Yeah. And that's like one of the first times I stepped on stage to go and speak. Wow. And then from that point, I started to start getting more chances to speak, and I had a student a few years later goes, hey, Frank, you challenged us to live our dreams. What are you doing to live yours? Mm. And that was calling me out to really step out and start to do this whole speaking deal. Mm-hmm. So that's about 15 years ago, and I stepped out to be a professional speaker. So I spent years booking speakers and performers, feeding their, their ears, like, hey, here's to stay on stage, here's how to go and do. Right. And all those groups kept saying, okay, well, why aren't you doing this? Mm-hmm. And that's how it got started.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And you talk about the first time that you got on stage and that experience, and to how you've transitioned to doing this full time now. Yeah. So what was that transition like? Or do you remember how that first time speaking kind of triggered that for you, or was it something that happened later?
I think like one of the first times it triggered it was the fact of I'm working at this college, and all of a sudden, my students start talking to an agent. Mm-hmm. Because I booked in performers, and they're talking to the agent. He goes, hey, he's like, do you know of any speakers? And they go, we think our advisor should be a speaker. And for me, I'm just doing my job. Yeah. So I'm not thinking about speaking for a group. So at this point, I work at the college. I'm the orientation director, so I'm speaking for orientation, and I got to speak to the board. So it's just part of my job. So I wasn't thinking about it. And then he goes, hey, it's like, your students believe in you. Would you like to consider doing this? I'm like, okay. It's like, I can do it on the side. It'll be some like side money, help out, go on some trips, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then when I got the first deal, and then I saw the check, I'm like, wait, this is about 2/3 of what I'm making a month. And I've only been here for a couple hours. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I might need to consider this one now. Exactly. So that started to, get the wheels going. But as I go deeper into the story, it's not about the money, because, I jumped out to become a professional speaker, and the first 6 or 7 years, it was my side hustle. Okay. And I kept saying it's going to be full time, but I didn't take it serious. And I tell people, God had to end up humbling me in the sense of, I thought it was all about having people hold a sign up saying Mr. Kitchen at the airport, getting a nice hotel room, getting a check. And then all of a sudden that went away because the economy tanked in 2007, 2008. Right. I expected the work just to come up and go and do. I got lazy. I moved out to Arizona from Ohio because, I'd met my wife and I wanted to move out here. I'm like, oh, jobs are just going to keep coming in. And then they didn't. And then I had to go and work a couple, 3 and 4 jobs to try to, just be able to try to pay the bills. Wow. And then all of a sudden I'd get a speech every now and then, and then someone would write up or send an email. My wife would like look over my shoulder and goes, oh, it's like, did you meet that person? I'm like, no. She's like, and did you talk to him? I'm like, no. And they're like, these people are like giving their full story. And they're going, hey, you know what? I heard your words, and I until I heard you speak, I was going to leave my job. Or until I heard you speak, I was going to leave a relationship. Or until I heard you speak, I was thinking about committing suicide. Wow. And that just changed me. Like, oh wait, that's why you do this. Yeah. And that's what shifted my mindset to really, go full bore into this.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. And it's amazing how you've been able to help people doing something that you, like you said, just considered a side hustle for a while.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It was, and like I said, for the longest time, I was chasing after it because then at that point I'm going, oh, you know what? I can do this instead of working the 9 to 5.
Right.
But I was still like, okay, well, we got kids. We got to be able to, to take care of the family, keep the lights on. And then I always will tell people like June 17th, 2015, that was the day things changed.
Wow.
And that day, I tell people why it changed was I was working for a company. I told myself, I prayed to God, wrote my resolutions out that year. I'm like, hey, this is the year I will become full time.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm going to wait for the right time. I'm going to wait for the perfect time.
Right.
And he knew I wasn't going to do it. So June 17th, I was working for this company and I get called into a meeting. Now I get going into the meeting, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm about to go on this trip to, New Mexico. And I'm like, hey, it's like, do you want me to go see your clients while we're there? It's like I did last time. And they're like, hey, we want to talk to you about your performance. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get, promotion, get a raise. And I go in and we sit down for lunch and they hand me this envelope. Wow. And the envelope is saying, hey, you know what? This isn't working. And, this is going to be your last week of work. And the thing that made it tough was the fact of that was Father's Day weekend. So we got a 2-year-old and my wife is 6.5 months pregnant. So I'm getting fired on Father's Day. So now I got to think about how to go back to her and to to even pile on. And like I was talking to a guy yesterday and we're saying God's got a sense of humor. To make it even worse was it's Father's Day weekend. We're going to my wife's parents' house. Oh, so now I got to go talk to the in-laws and go, hey, guess what? I don't have a job. Your 3rd grandchild's on the way. And I want to be a full-time speaker. I mean, that's when reality hits.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So for you then, just kind of talking on that, what did it take maybe after that, or what was your mindset, maybe a better way to word it, what was your mindset during all of that to not give up on full-time speaking or that dream and then just go find another job? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you decide this is what it's going to be?
Well, the big one was I'm driving in the car. I'm driving for a couple hours there, and I'll tell you, I was like, the first thought was, oh, you know what? I'm like, and I don't know what the language is like here on your show, how real you can get, but I mean, hey, my family's from the South, so we go sugar, honey, iced tea. So if you want to put that together, buddy, sugar, honey, iced tea, you can figure out. That was my whole moment was, what do I say to my wife? Am I going to let her down? Like I've lost these jobs before, and like I'm like, why is this happening to me? But she had told me, it's like, hey, you're designed to work with people, not for people. So I got that piece. So we had the talk going there, and I just go, you know what? I was like, I've been half-assing it all these years. I was like, I've been talking it, but I haven't been living it. And I go, it's like, you know what? I was like, there's not going to be jobs out there. It's like, it's going to take a while. I was like, let me put the full effort. And that weekend, because I knew I was trying to leave this job, I'd signed up for a speaker showcase. So I was going to go showcase. I'm just going to go do this piece. But then I started talking to a couple friends, talked to some people. And my wife just goes, hey, you know what? It's like, if you're going to go for this, take my dad with you. And like, he'd never seen me speak live before. Wow. So I take him to the speech with me at this showcase. And it's for like high school student leaders. And there's people from all around the country there. Got a couple hundred kids in this room. And I'm speaking. And I'm watching him the whole time. Didn't even think about the audience. And I'm watching him nod his head and watching his reactions after it's over. Then he's like talking to people. And then he goes, hey, we go out to lunch. One of my friends is a speaker. We go hang out and he goes, this is what you're meant to do. And he goes, what can I do to help you out? And that piece there, because I've been scared, of this point. I'm like, do I say anything to him? Do I not say anything? I'm like, okay, I got to practice now what I've been preaching on stage. So when he told me, he's like, hey, I got your back. That was a piece of, okay, let's go full bore for this. And once I did that, I told people it's a point where you got to get hungry for something. I'm like, hey, it's like, I made it work. I work with my network, my family, my friends, my wife. It's like, okay, let's make this work. And I told her, like, give me 1 year. That was 6 years ago.
Man.
and we've been going ever since.
That's so amazing, Frank. Such an amazing story. I know you haven't even scratched the surface on it, but just that portion alone, it just talks so much about faith and taking that leap of faith and taking that risk, because that's something that, and I've said this a few times on the show, that's something that I recently did. And I think it's amazing how sometimes when you take that leap and you're scared, sometimes God will put people around you to either encourage you, motivate you, stories that are similar and connect you and help you kind of grow and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I was always telling people how to go through a tough time, but I hadn't really gone through a tough time myself. And then all of a sudden, like, boom, I talk to my wife about it all the time and I was like, it's funny how I was like, with God, it's like as soon as you offer some advice to somebody else or tell them what they should or shouldn't do, then that same thing gets put onto your plate to see if you're going to follow the words that you've been sharing. So when that piece got put onto me, I can't be, too full of myself, and I gotta be humble. I can't be too prideful. So guess what? Picked up the phone, told everybody, I was like, hey, I got fired. I wasn't ashamed of it. I was like, hey, it's like, what should I do? How can I help out? And everybody goes, you got to take care of your family. Don't worry about trying to get back at that company, go and do it. It's like, you got to take care of your family. Right. Like even one friend of which I found out, he's a deacon at a church. He goes, I drive Uber. He's like, would you like me to get you signed up? I'm like, to go Uber? He's like, you don't have to worry about a boss. Yeah. So I signed up for Uber. Yeah. That point there, but it's like, it's funny. Everybody started, like you said about how things are presented, everybody started giving me options. No one got down on me, said, what did you do wrong? And just go, okay, what's the solution to the problem? Let's, and what can we do? And the funny thing was, when I called all these people and I wasn't ashamed to do it, several people called up and go, hey, Frank, you want to come speak for us? I'm like, and it turned into work. So as soon as I did that, I'm like, within like 2 weeks, I'd built out like a week of speaking just from talking to friends in the network. Yeah.
And sometimes, like you said, sometimes when you take that leap of faith, like you did, you stepped out on faith, and then doors just began to open. Yeah. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just being humble enough, or not setting the pride aside and just going after what your purpose is. And you talk about purpose in your speaking and on your website and social media. You talk about helping people break through mental barriers, finding their purpose. And I feel like sometimes people get confused on what purpose actually is. It's different than a career or what they like to do or something like that. Can you kind of explain what is purpose and how do you find that?
Oh yeah, what I like to share with people is like we all have a dream. We got this dream, and we all have that dream that's woken us up in the middle of the night. Like, you know that dream that's woken you up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the dream where it's so good in the middle of the night that you try to go back to sleep to get back, like Netflix, right? So we know how that goes. And I told people, like, that dream that keeps you up in a good way, I'm like, that's either your passion, your purpose, or your dream. It's a thing where you're thinking about it all the time, where you'd be willing to put whatever time you would be willing to trade for it. That's purpose. So purpose is that thing where, when you pick up the phone, it's the first thing you look at. Yeah. I joke with the group I was coaching a few weeks ago, and I go, hey, I was like, you can speak on anything. Like, what do you mean you can speak on anything? And I showed them how to go look up goldfish conventions. I'm like, look, there are people traveling around the world right now talking about goldfish, because that's their purpose. That's just what they love to go and do. And I was like, when you find that purpose, that passion, that dream, I'm like, guess what? You can find other people to align with it. And that's the deal. Is like, we're in this world where it's like, you gotta be a doctor, gotta be a lawyer, you gotta be all this. That's for somebody else. Exactly. We're in the greatest time now, because whatever that purpose is for you, there's other people who don't either have the time or the knowledge to be able to do it, so they're gonna come to you. Right. So I got a friend right now where he's going on a trip to Dallas tomorrow. All he does is sell Jordans. And he lost his job now. And I'm talking to him about what I went through for my barriers. And I'm going, like, this is your specialty. This is what you love. I'm like, you are driving around town. You are flying on flights just to go pick up special drops of Jordans. I'm like, you go to Mexico on your honeymoon and you come back with a suitcase full of like Jordans from like whatever the team is in Paris, and like special colors. And like, you know exactly how to go do it in black light. I'm like, that's your purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Man, that's amazing. And that's so well put. Like, that thing that keeps you up, the thing that you're so passionate about, like you said, that you're willing to invest everything in, that's the purpose. That's what you need to go chase. So well said. And like I said, you are a professional speaker, but you're also a coach. And something that you kind of coach by is the fresh recipe, or something that you said, I live fresh. So kind of tell people what that is.
So, my last name is Kitchen. So, right. so you got to have fun with it. So I'm always dropping something culinary in there. And it goes back to like years ago, like when I was in high school, I roll into, my home economics class. Yeah. And the teacher goes, what's your name? I go, Frank Kitchen. And she's like, that's a joke. Because, we got basketball players in there, football players, so she just knows who she's got in the room. Exactly. So she's like, okay, that's not, it's like, what's your name? I was like, Frank Kitchen. She's like, no. She's like, this is the last time. I'm going to ask you right now. This is Miss Watson. She's like, what's your name? It's like Frank Kitchen. So she goes, I was like, oh, okay, that is your name. So for the longest time, I'm running away from this name. But as I start getting older, people remember. It's like, they're like, that's Kitchen. Like I used to have students. I worked at a college. They're going around the conference going, Kitchen, 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 Kitchen. And then I started watching other people doing the same thing. Like, hey, so why do you guys say it? It's like, I don't know. We saw this group just saying Kitchen. And that's just how my students would call me. That was the easiest thing.
Right.
So when I got into speaking, I'm like talking to my wife and going, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, let me figure this thing out. And I'm going, I was like, should I talk about fun? Should I talk about fun? And she goes, no. She goes, why don't you talk about, you used to do that thing called, Fresh, and you used to write that newsletter called Fresh from the Kitchen. And I was like, everybody always loves something that's fresh from the kitchen.
Right.
And when I started to go, I was like, okay, well, I like the word fresh, that's good. I was like, how do I break it down? And what I realized was we were talking about the mental and physical barriers. Fresh is the diary for what I went through, why I failed at so many things.
Oh, okay.
So when you break it down, it's 5 letters. So I talk about, it's one thing to talk about what we're going to do. It's one thing to think it, but it's another one to live it. So I want people to live it.
Yeah.
And when I say live it, I want people to live focused. That's the F.
Okay.
So you got to have a focus. So you talked about, that's your passion, that's your purpose, that's the dream. So when you have that passion or purpose or dream, then guess what? It makes the decision-making process easy. So if your deal right now, I know you've been recording all day, all week. Yeah. And you're like, you know what? I got to get my rest because that's my purpose. I got to show up on time. I got to do the research. I got to do the study. So people are like, hey, you know what? Let's go hang out tonight. You're like,
Exactly.
Because I got to get ready for you got more going on tomorrow. So you got to be focused. I wasn't focused. I was chasing after all these shiny objects.
Right.
Oh, that looks cool. That looks cool. That can make money. So because I wasn't focused, the speaking didn't happen. Next one is you got to get resourceful. I always talked about what I didn't have. I would blame, I complain about what's going on. And I forgot about when I started to speaking about all the people in my network. I sat down for breakfast with a guy one day. He's like, Frank, what are you doing? I was like, oh yeah, I left the college to go start speaking career. He's like, how come you never told me? He goes, I had a conference last week, I would have booked you. And it's like, whoa. So resourceful is just thinking about what you have versus what you don't have.
That's good.
And like we never have everything we need in life.
Yeah.
So why we complain about it?
Right.
But we know people who could probably have access to the knowledge or the materials or whatever we need to, quote, turn that dream into reality. So gotta get resourceful. The next one is we gotta get enthusiastic. And when we talk about the purpose we talked about earlier, I was like, we're not enthusiastic about the work. Because I'll be honest, everybody, right now, it's like, we got lights all around the room, we got cameras, like we're in Arizona, he's got a sweatshirt on, it's probably like 100 degrees in this room right now, but he's smiling. But the thing is, he's not complaining about the work right now, Ryan's not complaining about that work, he's focused on right now the results of the work. So you're enthusiastic about the results. So I told people, like, when we go on vacation, think about it. Are we excited about getting on that plane? Are we excited about getting the house cleaned up, paying that last bill, get everything? No. But we're thinking about having my toes in the sand. I'm going to be, it's the results of it. So we had to be enthusiastic about that. So for me, I had to start thinking about, okay, it's not the work. I don't like making phone calls. I don't like making emails. But I think about, oh, wait, my wife's at home homeschooling our kids. She gets to be home, doesn't have to worry about, having a job that's going to treat her, that got treated like me. I get to watch my kids. I get to watch my kids come and participate in stuff like this. My son likes setting up the cameras and the lights for virtual. So you have to think about the results that excite you. So that's the E. Then you got to get strong, and you got to get strong mentally. I told people where your mind goes, your body follows. Yeah. So the S is about being mentally strong, and the way to do that is you got to stay around other mentally strong people. If you hang around a bunch of quitters, then you're going to quit all the time. That's what happened with me. I was in the wrong places, the wrong environments, and that stuff rubbed off on me. As soon as I got around some people who were like chasing after their dreams, boom, man, that stuff is positively contagious. Exactly. And then the last piece is we got to have self-reflection. We got to be honest. That's the H. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to figure out, are you helping the process or are you hurting the process? Are you the one who's the problem, not everybody else? Exactly. Or better yet, is there something you've done in the past that was good that you can apply now? So I tell people my last name is Kitchen, so I said this is the fresh recipe. Yeah. So the case is, if you live focused, you live resourceful, you live strong, you live honest, you live enthusiastic. Got the letters messed up there, so see, I'm a professional. They got it, yeah. And that's just being real right now. But if you do that, then what happens is, like I said, a lot of people think it, a lot of people talk it, but the people we remember are the people who live it. I mean, you remember by how you live, not by what you say.
So true. So true and so real. And like you said, the resources that you have around you, the people that you have around you really push you forward and help you break through those mental barriers like you were talking about with the S. And it's so real because sometimes people don't understand why they are struggling in certain areas or dealing with certain things. And sometimes it's just as simple as the circle around them. Sometimes once you change the people who are around you or the people who influence you, life will change after that. You know what I mean? So that's so important and so real. And you talk about mental barriers with the S, talking about being strong. How do you, if you're explaining this to somebody, or maybe when you're speaking, how do you break through those mental barriers? What's the process?
So when I'm speaking on stage, I always tell people, it's like, you got to stop. I'm making, and stop sounds, okay, yeah, we understand we got to stop. But I always tell people there's like 4 or 5 things that really are these mental barriers that turn into physical barriers for us. So the first one I tell people is like, we got to stop doing is like, we got to stop lying. We got to stop lying to ourselves. We talk about, I'm not talented enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. We start making all these lies up so we can just self-justify why we don't go for something. Because our brain is designed to keep us away from things that are going to hurt us.
Right.
So if we lie to ourselves about something that's going to hurt us, then we won't go for it. Yeah. So so that's the first barrier right there. So we got to stop lying to ourselves. Number 2 is, when I talk about we got to stop, is we got to stop trying. Right. We try to be somebody else. I don't have your talent. Yeah. So why should I try to be like Ryan? That's true. I just got to be the best me. And as you said, I've got my own purpose. God has given me certain talents. God's given you certain talents. Exactly. So what I can learn from you is, hey, you know what? Stop trying to be like Ryan, but start learning from Ryan. Yeah. He's doing the research. He's putting in the time for his purpose. I got to put in time and the training and the knowledge and dedicate stuff for my purpose. Oh, really? So stop trying. Then the big one is we got to stop caring. And when I say caring, we got to stop caring about the opinions of people who don't care about us. Right. I mean, for the longest time, we're always worried about, how people are going to judge us because, we're in this judging world. So it's like, okay, if I came in tonight, it's like, okay, well, I'm in a suit. What do people want to think about that? No, that's what I wanted to wear today. That's what I feel comfortable. It makes me feel my best. So if my wife walks in and goes, why are you wearing that? Because she wants the best for me, then I'm going to change it. Yeah. But if I'm walking down the street and somebody goes, why are you wearing that? I don't know. They don't like suits. They don't like blue. It's up to them, but I got to stop worrying about that. And that's the other piece is we got to stop worrying. We always worry about things we can't control. Right. I mean, the only person who controls everything is up above. Come on. So all I can do is show up on time for the interview. Get dressed. I mean, make sure I make the phone calls. I do my research. You do your research. Exactly. That's what I do. So only worry about the things you can control. And then the final one I learned was the biggest barrier was we got to stop waiting. And I tell people, like, I'll be honest, I'm looking at the camera right now. When you wait, you're wishing an idea turns out. Okay? I mean, so when we wait, so we got to stop waiting for things. The success I've had recently, could I have had this years ago? Yeah. Why did it happen? I waited. I was waiting for the perfect time, and there is no perfect time. Right. I mean, so people go like, well, Frank, I can't start my dream today. I'm like, yeah, you can. Like, well, I don't have the money. I'm like, I didn't say you had to have the money. You don't have to have the time, but you can go jump on the internet and research. You can call a friend up. You can go ahead and, go to a library. I mean, you can go ahead and you can write down that, hey, this is my big goal. You can go commit to something. Exactly. That starts right now. Right. And those are the people who aren't waiting. And I've been literally in rooms of billionaires, okay? Yeah. And these billionaires, they're not necessarily any smarter than anybody. They just went ahead and started to, hey, I got this idea. Let me start to work to make it happen. And like you said, they put themselves in the right networks of people who weren't waiting either. Yep. And next thing you know, boom, they're the ones you see on TV, you're reading articles about, and everybody goes, well, I had that idea. Well, you might have had that idea, but guess what? They actually worked on that idea. Right. And that's the only difference I've seen when I've watched people who are successful and not successful.
Nothing more to really say about that, Frank. So well said. I did want to ask you, because I know you are an author as well. You've written, 3 or 4 books?
Now I gotta go back through. I've been. It sounds funny when you ask that question. Is I know definitely I've been a part of 4, but what happens is I've re-released some books and I've also contributed some books. So so the number I think right now is like either 6 or 7. Wow. Okay. So so it goes up because what you'll do is like. I wrote my first book. It's called Fresh from the Kitchen. Okay. And I'll give you a copy right after this. So I appreciate it. Yes. But what happened was now. You start to read it and like you start to go like, oh wait, I should have changed this or go and do. So I've released that one 3 times. So it's the same title, but the book's like, it's actually 3 different books. So that's that one. Then I got a book I wrote with my friend Roger, who's a speaker. Then I had like another one I wrote, and I got some other groups where I was an author on the book. So when you start to go to number, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like I'm part of, I know I got 4 of my own. Right. And I've been parts of 3 others.
Got you. Okay. Wow. What's that process like though for people who, like myself, have never written a book? What's that process been like, or what's that process?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I was up on stage and people were going, hey, do you have a book? When I came off, I'm like, I don't have a book. I was like, I don't write. I don't like writing. Yeah. And they go, well, you got a blog. And the person goes, you got like 600 blog posts. You've been writing for years. I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah. So when I wrote my first book, right, and that's the one that's called Fresh from the Kitchen, was I went and just took the best blogs, the ones that got the most comments, the most pieces, and I put that together as a collaborative book.
Yeah.
And so it's got a combination of like workshops, presentations, and the people said they liked it because that's, just kind of written short pieces. Like you can pick it up, put it down, go ahead and read. So, I was like, oh, okay, so I wrote that one. And then another one, someone goes, well, would you put a workbook together? So I'm just listening to the audience. I'm like, what do you want? So when it comes to writing a book, I just tell people, you got to listen to your audience. What do they want? So then me and my buddy wrote that book. We used it, and then it kind of sat, and then Amazon came around, like, oh, wait, we can self-publish.
Yeah.
And then we put it back out. And the funny one was when we did that book last year, that book has gone crazy in the last year. It's called, 52 Ways to Shine.
Okay.
And we're saying, especially when COVID came around, that people just didn't feel like they were valuable. They didn't feel like they could leave an impact. And me and my friend, when we first started speaking, we were called the bad apples.
Okay.
And we said an apple is a fruit that everybody respects or values because of the, the impact it's had on history, on economies. Or like, we even give it as a gift to people. So we got together and just wrote the book where it's like a self-reflection. He's a PK, preacher's kid, everybody. And his dad was a pastor from Jamaica. And, anytime I go to his house, he always was giving us daily bread. And I'm like, what if we wrote our book that way? So you get ideas. So okay, 52 ways to shine. There's 52 weeks. So we wrote down 52 unique ways you can discover your value and leave an impact on the people around us. So that was a piece there. And then now I got my wife where she's like, okay, well, that book is really good that way. So now she's coming to me an idea. She's like, well, why don't you write a book like this? So when it comes to the books, I'm like, a lot of times is like listening to the people around you. Right. And they go, hey, can you teach me this? Can you show me this? And then you write it. And then when you write it, I tell people, it's like, just brain dump the stuff right now. Just get it out of your head. Okay. And some people this can take a couple weeks. Some people this can take years. Right. So it depends on, how it's going to work. But then the main one is I've been telling people when they're writing their books is write it like you're talking to the reader. Gotcha. We're not doing this whole third person deal. So when people pick up my books, they go, man, I felt like I was having a conversation with you, like you said, having a story. Yeah. So I won't say Ryan in the book, but I'm like, hey, have you ever felt this way? Right. Okay. Yeah. Or, I get the book, I'm like, okay, I want you to go look at your kitchen sink right now. And I had people wrote me, like, I put the book down and went to the kitchen sink because I thought you were talking to me. So when you write the stories, you have to realize you're having a one-on-one relationship with that reader. Right. So when you do write that book, don't write it like, I, Frank Kitchen, or I did this, or I did. It's like, hey, here's what I did. Exactly. And that's my style. I'm very conversational. So I wrote the book the way, and my first friend who actually helped edit the book, he goes, Frank, half your book, I like it. He's like, the other half of the book, it's no good. Because he goes, you're writing it like you're writing a term paper. And he goes, schools have taught us, he's like, that formal style, but he goes, people are attracted to the emotion or you being real or you being genuine. So if you're going to write a book, everybody, just be you. I mean, be the best you. Don't try to be anybody else. So whatever your style is. And I tell people, it's like when I used to help grade papers. My wife was a teacher. Was somebody's style when they're writing it. Right. And then all of a sudden someone comes to help them write that paper and like, okay, wait, you don't use those words. You don't talk that way. So the people who want to get that book, they can tell it too. So you got to write the book the way you talk. Right. The way, I get people who are like, oh, Frank, you didn't use an intelligent word. That's how I talk. Exactly. I mean, so that's just me being real. Right. So why would I go and change and try to use some multi-syllabic word to sound smart? Yeah. I'm going to say, hey, guess what? I grew up dealing with a lot of stuff. Exactly. And stuff is, and people can understand what that means. Yeah. So that's how you just go ahead and write. So that's just my advice. So you write that book, I mean, I would just say, start to put the ideas down, start to frame it out. The main piece is think of the purpose. Like, what do you want people to get from reading that book? I mean, so start with the end in mind. Right. So the case is just like in a GPS, you're typing in, where you're going. Okay, if you're going to have this book, why is it important? Like even right now, I wrote down this year, like, oh, I'm going to do this book. But then I like the schedule, the calendar. I'm like, okay, I'm going to rush it. And I want people to have something that's valuable because they're investing their time and their money into it. So now my wife and I, we own our business together. I'm like, I've pushed that book now back probably like 6 months because I'm going to be rushing it. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to rush this product because people can see that you're just trying to rush. So that's the big deal. Is like, right place, right time, right reasons, and just be yourself. Yeah, I love that. Like you said, I love what you said in there. Use your style that works for you. So, and you can use that in anything, honestly. Yeah, be yourself. So that's so huge. And you said so many great things, dropped so many gems, Frank, throughout our conversation. I really enjoyed it. Before I let you get out of here, man, I can't let you dip without a mental note. So whether that's a tip, piece of advice, whatever you want to leave with the audience, what would your mental note be? All right, so the mental note, I'm going to give you the one I've been sharing with people a lot lately. Okay. I always will, when I'm having conversations, tell people like, you know, in any type of relationship conversations, like someone's got to be the adult. So it might as well be you. So I like to tell people, like, we're in this world right now where, you know, we complain all the time.
Right.
So I've been telling everybody, it's like, be the person you want everybody else to be. I mean, that's my tip right there. Be the person you want everybody else to be. So if you're telling people they need to show up on time, are you showing up on time? You want somebody to call you on the phone. Are you calling people? Yeah. Are you saying happy birthday? Are you sending that text message?
Right.
You know, are you holding the door open? Are you handling your finances? We can tell everybody else what to go and do. Fine. But are you doing it? Because that's what people are watching. That's what your kids watch. My kids are watching me. I can tell them, like, hey, you got to go do this. And if I don't do it, that's a miscommunication right there. And they're like, well, why should I do it? So the case is, be the person you want everybody else to be.
Yeah.
And that's it. Only person you can control is you.
That's true. I love
So just take care of you and be your best.
Man, simple as that. I love it. Such a beautiful mental note, such a beautiful conversation, Frank. Thank you so much for coming on. Before I let you go, let people know where they can find you on social media or any other platform.
There's only one of me, so I just always tell people, just look up Frank Kitchen and don't do kitchens. I'm like, there's only one kitchen in your house. So just at Frank Kitchen, you're going to find me dropping a lot on YouTube, just YouTube Frank Kitchen, Instagram Frank Kitchen, LinkedIn Frank Kitchen, Facebook, just Frank Kitchen, and you're all good. Yep.
Can't get any easier. Frank, thank you so much for coming on, man. Can't wait to connect with you more.
All right, sounds good.
Today's musical guest is a very good friend of mine who will be spinning some tracks for you guys from his debut EP, I Miss the Club. Give it up for J Myles.
Mental Notes Live, what's good? Y'all, this is my first DJ set, man. Y'all go easy on me now, okay? But I'm gonna make it do with it, though. Let's get it.
Anybody else but you. Anybody else but you. I need anybody but you. Anybody else but you. I don't want anybody else but you. I need anybody else but you. Anybody else but you. Anybody else but you. Anybody else but you. I need anybody else but you. Anybody else but you. I don't want anybody else but you. I need anybody else but you. Anybody else but you. Outside I saw you standing, and I started breathing something. I knew you.
Come on now, if you don't know this one, you're a little too young to be wild.
And just like a moment, you were too shy, but you weren't the only cause, so was I. And I dreamed of you ever since. Now I build up my confidence, and next time you come my way,
Come on, y'all know the words.
I know just what to say. Can we talk for a minute? Girl, I want to know your name. Can we talk for a minute? Girl, I want to know your name.
When he's finished, does he step back and adore you? I just gotta know, 'cause your time is money and I won't let him waste it. Oh no, no, baby, just go with it. 'Cause when you're with me, I can't explain it. It's just different. We can take it slow, or act like you're my girl. Let's skip the basics. Whoa, no. He's so replaceable. You're worth the choice, you're more than enough. It's
Y'all, this is a track from my EP, man. This is a dance break right here. Go listen to it, I Miss the Club, on any streaming platform. track from my EP, y'all. This needs more cowbell. Hope at least one of y'all get that reference. Birthday to Janet Jackson, Taurus Queen. Notes Live, I want to thank y'all for rocking out with me tonight. Today, whenever you watch.
My guy, J Myles, thank you so much for performing, man. That dude is so talented. So glad to have him on this episode of Mental Notes Live. My final thought that I want to leave you guys with today is, how are you living in your purpose? Me and Frank talked about it today, about how to break through mental barriers, but more importantly, how to find your purpose and how to find that thing that continues to keep you up at night, that thing that continues to be on your mind, that thing that you are truly passionate about, but that you are refusing to pursue for whatever the reason may be. So I challenge you to push back that resistance, fight against it, and continue to pursue your purpose. Chase it with all that you have and continue to move forward to do what you are truly called to do. Whether that is changing up careers, whether that is starting up a business, whether that is starting up a brand or starting up a new venture or an opportunity, be sure to do that with all of your heart and continue to live in purpose. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of Mental Notes Live. I would be remiss if I didn't shout out our sponsor and partner for this season, Kafers Clothing. As you can see, they've created a lot of dope merchandise, as you can see on the screen, but not only there, you'll see it throughout all of our guests and musical artists as well throughout this season. So be sure to check out kafersclothing.com and use our promo code MNL20 to receive 20% off of everything on the website. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If so, you know you gotta like the video below, hit that like button, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well. And since you're hitting 2, might as well hit the 3rd and hit that bell to turn on post notifications as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode once again, and you know we'll be back next week. Peace.